So last week we started out talking about love, and do you remember the scripture that we used was that Jesus said the first commandment is to love God with all your heart and with all your soul. And the second commandment, love your neighbor as yourself. Love one another. Wow, as you love yourself. Sometimes that's hard to do, isn't it? And then there's a scripture where he says, you will be known as my disciple by your love. Wow, what a challenge. I think if we all pause for a moment, we could think of someone in our life that it is difficult to have a relationship with. And so I'm doing a little series on this book called The 5 Languages of Love. And it was written how to express heartfelt commitment to your mate. And since then they have expanded it. They have 5 languages of love for the workplace, for children. You can go on to 5languagesoflove.com and take a test. I couldn't find my book last week. I found it this week. Next week we'll have 4 or 5 to sell in case any of you want this book. It's a great book. It's a quick book. The author, Gary Chapman, is a minister and a counselor, and he saw that people had problems in relationships, and people would come for marriage counseling. And they would need help. And sometimes the help helped, and sometimes the help didn't help. And so this is the result of his practice. And he talks about most of us, he says most of us grow up learning the language of our parents and our siblings, which becomes our primary language. And so what happens in a relationship is you grow up learning one love language and somebody else grows up learning another love language, and then what you do is you always give the love language that you want to receive, as opposed to giving the love language that your partner needs to receive. So over the next few weeks, we're going to be talking about each one of the love languages. It's just like if you're speaking Spanish, and I had Spanish in high school and college, and you know, other than gracias and a couple of other words, I can't remember any of it. And so if you speak to me in Spanish, we're not going to communicate. And Gary Chapman says that when we have different love languages, it's just as hard to communicate. And I keep trying to come toward y'all, and when I do, the speaker keeps saying, don't go there. So I'm not trying to ignore you. One of the people that a quote out of the book, Dr. Ross Campbell. He's a psychiatrist who specializes in children and adolescents, says that inside every child is an emotional tank waiting to be filled with love. And that's why we've read that book for Children's Church about filling up your bucket. And when we talk about this emotional tank, we have tanks in our cars, and remember how high did gas go? What was it at its highest? $4 just about. But didn't we still fill up our cars? Yeah. You know, we might have driven a little less, but we still filled up our cars. Well, what we need to be is present to the fact that our emotional tank has to be full. And I'm doing the series because what I realized is that my emotional tank has not been so full. And out of that, when my emotional tank isn't full, I get really nasty. You know, it's hard to be nice when you're running on empty and you're running on fumes. So Dr. Campbell says inside every child, and we're all children, just bigger children, is an emotional tank waiting to be filled with love. When a child really feels loved, he will develop normally. But when the love tank is empty, the child will misbehave. Much of the behavior of children is motivated by the cravings of an empty love tank. And the symptoms of an empty tank are misbehavior, withdrawal, harsh words, and a critical spirit. Wow. Can you think of yourself at a time where you have either withdrawn or misbehaved or used harsh words or been critical? Can you think of a time where you have? Can you think of somebody else? Yes, we all can. In fact, probably the only person that I have a real hard time thinking about is my husband, because he's always calm. You know, sometimes that even drives me nuts. He doesn't do harsh words. He's such a sweetheart. So one of the love language is words of affirmation. There's some of the other ones are like touch and quality time, and we're going to cover those. But today we're talking about words of affirmation. Well, here in Unity, we know what words of affirmation are, don't we? Yes. I mean, we've tried to fill our own love tank with affirmation. And what was this week? You are a beloved child of God. And last week it is, I am a beloved child of God. So we say those things trying to fill up our own personal, emotional love tank. We say it to someone else to help them fill up their emotional love tank. And so words of affirmation can come in a number of forms. It can come in the form of a compliment or a sense of appreciation. And in the book, Dr. Chapman talks about visiting some friends that he had known for 12 years, and he got there and he found that their marriage was just in shambles. And he thought, oh, what do I do? I mean, here my wife and I are friends with them, and they're falling apart. And he said he managed to talk to both the husband and the wife separately, and he asked them to tell him the things that they appreciated about the other person. And both of them had things that they appreciated. They both had complaints, but they both had things they appreciated. And so what Dr. Chapman asked is that for the next month, that every day they find some way to tell their partner what they appreciated. And he said in 3 months he called back, and when he talked to the husband was doing great. He asked him the other thing he asked him to do is to not, when somebody gave you when one of them said what they appreciated about another person, not to respond back with, and I like such and such. In other words, if the husband told the wife, that was a great dinner, I really appreciated that meal, then for the wife to say thank you, and to pick another time to say I appreciate something about the husband. In 3 months he called back, and the husband was doing great. He said, this is working. And as he talked to the wife, she didn't say it was working so much. And so he recognized that he told the wife was giving the husband his language that he needed, but words of affirmation was not what the wife needed. So it's real important for us to be real clear and listen and pay attention to the other person, because I don't know about you, but if I'm having problems with somebody, particularly at work, I'm not likely to go say, take this test and tell me what your love language is. Are you?
No.
But you need to be aware, and so that's why we're talking about it. And so he cited another example where a woman came into him and said that she had been trying to get her husband to paint the bedroom for 3 months. And she said, he won't do it. How do I get him to do it? And Dr. Chapman asked the lady, he said, well, does he know that you want him to paint the bedroom? And she said, oh yes, he knows that I want him to paint the bedroom. She said, just last Saturday, it was a beautiful day, and do you know what he did? He went out and he washed and waxed the car. And Dr. Chapman said to her, do you like it when there are no bugs on your windshield? He said, what I want you to do is you go home and every time he does something that you like, you affirm that, you appreciate that. But don't say one more word about that bedroom. Of course, she did not like that very much. 3 weeks later, she came in and said, he painted the bedroom. Because she affirmed the good things that he did. And so affirming the good things that the people do in our lives is so important. Saying thank you, noticing. It's one kind of word of affirmation. Another kind of word of affirmation is encouragement. Encouragement takes really knowing the person that you're talking to. Because before I went on my diet, before we did the CHIP program, if you talked about weight to me, I did not find that encouraging. If you talked about cholesterol, I did not find that encouraging. Mary Jane, when you talked to me about not eating meat, I didn't find that encouraging. In fact, it wasn't until I made up my mind of what I was going to do. And then when you say, yes, Beth, I know you can do that, then that's encouragement. I have a friend who is a wonderful writer and doesn't write near enough. And so I always try to when she's talking about a story or something that she always wants to write, I always try to encourage her to do that because it's a natural skill that she has and it's what she wants to do, and yet she puts it off and does stuff. Do any of us have stuff we do that in place of what we really want to do? So that's the kind of encouragement we need, the encouragement to have courage to move forward. How many times when I have felt quaking inside because we're in a building that now has a mortgage and people keep saying, we can do it. Look what we've done. Yesterday at a meeting, we were talking about the various uses of the rooms and things, and what I said, and it came out this way. You know, when we started this, we had a building that could only be sold as a church or a residence. It was that beautiful property, but it couldn't be used for anything else. And I don't know about you, but I didn't think that was just such a residency place. You know, I don't know if it would stand up to having showers and bathtubs and stuff. worth $300,000? But with encouragement, Reverend Tom Balzani, who was here last week, he was helped us with fundraising. He kept telling us, you can do this. We'd kind of go off astray a little bit for the program, and he'd kind of rein us back in and say, you can do this. And here we are in a building, and we have $800,000 worth of equity because the building's worth so much more than we paid for it. Words of encouragement. We got here through people saying, yes, we can do this. Yes, you can do this. Keep the faith, Reverend Beth. Don't get bogged down. And so in the weeks to come, when we have construction going on in 2/3 of the building, and do we think it might get messy?
Yeah.
Yes. Before the perfection, we might have a little chaos. But the truth is, we can do it. We have some parking spaces outside that I would tell you not to park in. Those parking spaces that have the little lattice thingies in, you know, the drainage things, some of those that are kind of broken up, and I found out the hard way you can trip and fall. Gerald said you could cut a tire. I'm going to tell you, don't park on those spaces. But at some point, we'll get to the point where we pick those pavers up, refresh the sand, tamp it down, and put the pavers back and fill it up with sand again. It's on the list. Right now, don't park there. Park there, I have a little waiver. Park here at your own risk. If you wear heels, don't park there. And the other thing, because those are drainage, what I found out when I parked in one and it rained really heavy, I had to step through a big puddle to get in my car. So, just to think, but it's a thing. And we could be upset about it. But we're choosing not to. We're choosing to use words of affirmation. We're choosing to use kindness. Kindness is saying kind words is the third kind of word of affirmation that I want to talk about. And have you noticed that there's already campaign rhetoric?
Oh, yeah. Yes.
On the news? And I don't care what party. You may think your party is better than the other party. But I bet if you were listening with the other party ears, you wouldn't think so. For me, who's a little apolitical, I find the languaging is not kind. I find that it's divisive. I find that it's trying to divide our country up. And does that work?
No.
It might work for an election short term, but then we see the aftermath. Nobody gets anything done. You and I have to be able to hold it together and see that there is good in every person, every single person. We have to hold it together and hold a vision and a picture of something that works greater than has ever happened before. We have to hold that for each other, and we have to express it. We have to express kind words. I can't tell you, I think, Jane, you're sitting right here in the front, I can't think of the number of times you have said something to me that was exactly what I needed to hear in the moment when my faith was flagging, or feeling good about myself was failing. You would say something kind that bolstered me. And you and I have that choice in our everyday life to make that happen for the people in our lives. We want that to happen for the children in our Sunday school, right?
Yes.
We want that to happen for each other, right?
Yes.
We want that to happen in our homes.
Yes.
Yes. We want that to happen at work. And there are tensions at work. I mean, if there can be tensions in a unity church, we know about it. Sometimes I make that tension. I don't want to do that. I want kindness. I want love. I want joy. If that's what you want, then what I'm asking you is to contemplate when you're dealing with someone else what their love language might be. And if words are your thing, if words of affirmation is your love language, it's going to be very easy for you to give those. But if it's not, you're going to have to practice. And I believe that words of appreciation, we all need to be doing it regardless of what a person's love language is. We all need to be doing it because that's what will keep us, personally, keep us in alignment with God. If we're noticing what's good, speaking what's good, thinking what's good, what happens? We feel good. And when we feel good and when we're happy, we can make other people happy. When we do that, we can change this world. You can do it at the supermarket. You can do it at your doctor's office. You can do it at your dentist's office. You can do it out there on US 1 or on Wickham. You can speak words of kindness. I know you must be in a real hurry to drive like that. There must be something going on in your life. Let me pray for you because you need my good thoughts. What would happen if we did that? What would happen? So next week we're going to talk about that wife that did not in the couple where they were having problems and they started using words of affirmation. The wives kept saying, but he still doesn't spend time with me. So next week our lesson is about quality time and that language of love. So I invite you this week, if you don't know about your language of love, and if you're so inclined, if you go to www.languageoflove.com, there's a test that you can take, and you can learn your language of love, and maybe you can figure out that person in your life who you'd like to really reinforce. Maybe you can figure out what their language of love is. So I hope that this week, when you're traveling, maybe you're at that place incapable. I'm going to say that you might leave incapable and go to capable with your language of love. Thank you very much.